Hi and welcome. Uh, we're going to take a look at Chapter 15, Objective 2, and this is kind of the essence of the chapter. Why is price greater than marginal revenue for a monopolist? So let's go ahead and get at it. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, so looking at this, we're taking kind of an idea here about at what point does a monopolist choose the price and the quantity that they're going to produce. Okay, so first we're going to compare and contrast a little bit a monopoly with a perfectly competitive market. Remember, in a perfectly competitive market, that the price, marginal revenue, and marginal revenue, average revenue, are all the same. So equals marginal revenue equals average revenue, which also equals price. Okay, that's because it's perfectly elastic, and the reason it's perfectly elastic is because all the products are homogeneous. Now let's take a look at a monopolist demand curve. This kind of is the demand curve that you're used to seeing. And here we know that we don't have a perfectly elastic demand curve. We actually have a demand curve that we're used to seeing and that we've seen throughout the entire course. Okay, excuse me. To sell a larger quantity, the firm has to reduce price, okay? So therefore, marginal revenue is no longer equal to price. It's actually going to look like or end up being something like this. And it will actually pass through that x-axis. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. Here we have Common Ground, the only seller of cappuccinos in town. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. So remember that total revenue is price times quantity. Average revenue is just total revenue divided by quantity. And marginal revenue is equal to the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. Let's go ahead and fill this out. So we have 0, right? We have 4, 7, 9, 10, 10, 9. So looking at this, something's going on around 4 and 5 here. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so average revenue, again, just average revenue is just the total revenue divided by the quantity. Marginal revenue, the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. So let's go ahead and look at that. And notice that each of these variables are different. So price is different than average revenue, which will also be different than marginal revenue. Okay. So let's go ahead and graph this. So here's our demand curve, what people are willing and able to pay for this product. And then here's our marginal revenue curve. Now, as we looked at this before, we said, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so if we look at the marginal revenue curve, remember marginal revenue is just the slope of the total revenue curve. Okay, anytime you see the word marginal, just remember it's the slope. So here's our demand curve. Okay, so if the monopolist decides to increase quantity, it depends on where they're increasing quantity. So if they increase quantity, then what happens is then the higher output effect will end up with an increase in total revenue. We call this an output effect. The price effect, though, is a little bit different. Lower prices will reduce revenue. So as the price decreases, then total revenue decreases. And a lot of what we look at is the difference between these two things. So we know that price will be greater than marginal revenue for a monopolist. Okay, and that's the end of this objective. So what should you take away? You should take away that price is no longer equal to marginal revenue, no longer equal to average revenue in a monopolist. A monopolist will produce where price is greater than marginal revenue. And we're going to see next time how we put that together with marginal cost. Still remembering that every firm, regardless of industry, will produce where marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal. Okay, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.